Monique, so happy and excited to have you here with us. It's such a pleasure for our Y Media to welcome you as Vice President of Singularity University. I'd like to know a little bit more about the work that you guys are doing at Singularity and the work that you're leading. I know that you have been working with them for a long time in different roles. So if you could just share a little bit of the work you're doing would be super interesting to all of us.
Yeah, so Singularity University is all about helping people understand exponential technologies. And so when we talk about exponential technologies, it's going to be things like artificial intelligence, synthetic biology, robotics, artificial intelligence. And see, what's happening is these technologies are changing our understanding of the world. They're happening and converging so quickly that we actually don't even know how to react as a human at this point in time. We keep seeing our smartphones changing all the time. We see a world of autonomous vehicles coming in, drone deliveries happening all over, but we don't actually know what's driving that, and that's really what exponential technologies are. And so we help people understand that, and then we also help them see what we call the global grand challenges of the world. And so these are going to be areas of like poverty, shelter, disaster resilience, education, and we challenge them. And in particular, you know, the group that I run is within startups, and so we challenge our startups to A, understand how exponential technologies work, B, how they converge to create new markets and opportunities, and see how they can be solved, how they can be used to solve the global grand challenges.
What are the kind of impact you've seen? And I know that in terms of startups, you have been supporting like a significant amount of startups, but what is the kind of impact that you see that is currently happening after all the work you guys are doing? What are the real numbers behind all these efforts?
Yeah, I mean, so there's 12 GGC categories, and our companies are about 65% in the healthcare space. So that means, you know, out of 1,000 startups, 65% of those are actually coming up with solutions within the healthcare space. And then it kind of tapers off and diversifies across education, coming up with different learning solutions. For example, one of our companies, Kakua, she's educating children without teachers in a classroom. And so she created a technology that goes on a tablet. It teaches reading, writing, and mathematics up to grade 6. And these are enabling students to learn who don't have access to a classroom environment. So we see technologies like that. Matternet is a company that is using drones as a way to deliver critical health devices or medical devices from one location to another. You know, the story behind them came because they wanted to figure out how to get medical supplies to a remote location, and couldn't very easily do it with a mule or with a car or whatnot. And so they started looking at drones as an opportunity to deliver medical devices. And now I think they've raised, you know, a little over $500,000. Yeah, actually no, $300 million they've raised, and we're starting to see their devices or their stations in Stanford University, and that's just kind of their near-term solution as they really start to leverage drone technology to delivering medical devices.
That's brilliant. I mean, I could listen to you for hours, but when it comes, I mean, I hear you when it's about like the startup ecosystem and how you're supporting these ideas, but what about the established system? I mean, this is like, you know, these new fresh minds that they come to the world and they want to make a change. But how can you, or what do you expect from the establishment, from governments? What do you expect from these big companies that they have large budgets and they can actually make an impact? What is the kind of change that you expect there to happen? Do you think these companies will just disappear and these new startups will take over, or do you actually see these big, large companies actually shifting into different, more sustainable models?
Yeah, I mean, a large percentage of our business is educating CEOs and executives of large corporations about exponential technologies. One, so that they can understand what's ultimately going to disrupt their industry, so they can start to disrupt themselves. But then two, to see what new, you know, opportunities they can unlock. And so, for example, if I can encourage more of industry, whether it's government or large corporations, to collaborate with entrepreneurs who are solving problems in the impact space, then all of a sudden we are taking different types of capital sources and influencers and governments and the innovation of entrepreneurs, and we're actually making a much larger, more concerted, deliberate impact in the world versus, say, government operating in a silo, corporations operating in a silo, and then startups operating in a silo. I would love to see a world where you've got, sponsorship comes in, or media comes in a form of, really knitting together an ecosystem and amplifying work that's worthy of being spread.
I'm super interested about, people. Many times we talk about how important people is, and it's in every single purpose of any company out there, and visions, missions, they're like filled with the world people. But then at the end, when it comes to actual, projects and initiatives, sometimes we forget them. It's kind of like we don't I don't think we spend enough time understanding and realizing the impact that companies and brands they may have in people's life. When you have trained and educated so many CEOs from different companies with your programs, what is the level of change or the actual impact that you think those programs are having on those leaders? Are they actually bringing this knowledge and new learnings into their actual business plans and vision plans so that they can implement change into real people's life?
Yeah, I mean, we run an executive program. It's a 10-day session where people, mostly executive level, come from all over the world, and they live and they breathe oxygen together for a little over a week and learn about these exponential technologies. And the entire time that we're there, we're challenging them by saying, like, look, now that you understand how these technologies work, the implications of these technologies, how are you applying that to solve bigger problems? How can you leverage your brand? How can you leverage your personal network to actually make the type of change that you want to see in the world? And so they walk out with not only their mind blown about how technologies are going to shape the future and are inevitably doing it, but also with some frameworks on how to think about solving bigger problems.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And one thing that I heard you the other day that I found very interesting is this fact that sometimes we see one technology evolving very rapidly, but we don't realize the combination of multiple technologies that they're exponentially growing and all the different effects that could bring. Could you talk a little bit about that? I mean, what are the different technologies that they are right now happening at the same time? And sometimes we have like a monovision on each one of them, but we don't realize that the combinations, they are like, infinite.
Yeah, I think that's probably one of the most interesting things, and I'd love to hear your perspective on this as well. But we were talking about artificial intelligence and thinking about all the implications of artificial intelligence on the world. But then it was provocative to say, well, but as we see massive changes in artificial intelligence happening, are we also what's happening in genetics, right? And what's happening with technologies like CRISPR and Cas9 and with stem cell therapy, and what happens when the two of those start to come together? What happens when the internet gets completely disrupted, and rebuilt on the likes of quantum and blockchain, and driven by artificial intelligence? What does the world now look like that we're not even, all these things are advancing so quickly, and our brains are just not capable of seeing that version of the future.